Okay, Mr. Knopp, Mr. Ray, what's our follow-up from yesterday? This was the issue the Science Board said, given all the delayed deadlines on BDCP release, they're deeply skeptical that the time frame permitted for review is sufficient for them.
Thank you, ma'am.
And you were going to work with them on
we have tried to draft a letter. It's coming around right now for you all.
Yep.
From you, Mr. Chairman, and from Tracy Collier, the chair of the ISB, to Secretary Laird. And the letter expresses your concerns about the review period and wants to, reiterates the importance of being able to have an adequate time to consider the result of the independent science panel that reviewing the BDCP's effects analysis, to have that information available to others. It doesn't explicitly call for an extension of time in the review period. Others are doing that. And then at the same time, we've got other groups of people, legislators on both sides, calling for shorter periods or longer periods.
Yeah, right.
I don't think there's a need for us to enter into the middle of that fray, but we've expressed our concerns previously about the review period, and this would be a chance to reiterate that.
What does this do?
What does this do? It does what we talked about doing yesterday, which was making sure that the Resources Agency understood the concerns of the ISB and of the Council about the review period and the questions we have about whether we can do an adequate job of review during that period. The Council, even this morning, the ISB was spending its time, partly, I understand, thinking about how they could organize themselves to get a review done during this period. And of course, we've been working with our consulting team to make sure that we can interact with the ISB and conclude what we hope will be an adequate review during
How much time is enough?
I have not a clue in the world. Ray, Hank, you were around for the discussion yesterday. It was pretty interesting. And one of the things the ISB raised is, geez, in comments letters, I guess in 2012, they said you have to put a summary on each of the chapters of BDCP that explains what it is you're doing, as opposed to just drop into the middle of the discussion and the whole thing. And they have made that suggestion. And as a matter of fact, the Council concurred in your staff letter, which the Council had looked at, with that particular suggestion. We have no idea whether BDCP is going to do it or not. And
is this a 4-month review?
Yes, under statutes.
Yeah, I mean, these are
the other
days, not
for
days.
the statute that created us set up the review period, including a review by the Delta Independent Science Board and the authorization of an independent science review of some kind.
That's being done at the request of the Bureau of Reclamation.
Yeah.
Perhaps I could just add a little perspective. Before I joined this meeting, the Independent Science Board actually discussed this at length, and we're getting much more organized for the review. If I can capture their discussion, and I left just before they decided their action, what they didn't want to do was to delay the process, because they said everyone's in the same position. They also said that the short timeline will keep them very focused. So I think their conclusion was that they will meet that deadline with a preliminary report so that people know what their thinking is. But they will probably be coming back if they have to jump into some of the details in greater depth. There's also probably some value associated with that, because then all of the issues will be out on the table.
Well, one thing caught my attention yesterday, and it's reflected in this last sentence in the big paragraph. There's an implementation agreement that will not be released at the same time the EIR and plan and all the other stuff is, and that will be released some week.
Early January.
Early January. And it's hard to figure out how that plays into the mix.
Can we end up by saying, despite our concerns, we will do the best possible work we can do? It'll be a quality document. I mean, because we're basically setting ourselves up for failure. I mean, we're setting us up with saying, this is a problem, this is a problem, therefore it's not going to be a real good job that we're going to do. I mean, that's the way I read it.
My suggestion is we wait till the December meeting and see what we know about what they've released, whether they have summaries, whether everybody's ready to go on this.
I think it'll work because the December meeting is the 17th, which is a day or 2 days after the report, which we now know is at least 30,000 pages long, not just 26.
But it's a 120-day review.
Mm-hmm.
It's a couple days
From the release date.
after.
From the release date, is that
Yeah,
correct?
from the release date.
Yeah,
We
but-
will have the BDCP staff and consulting team
But what
here
can-
at that December hearing.
Well, if it was necessary to extend the time, couldn't they do it later?
Of course. No, it's not uncommonly done for people
Right.
to extend times on comment.
Well, we did it
Yeah, we did
in the
it
Delta plan.
twice, didn't we?
Yeah, we extended it.
Yeah,
It
but-
required 45 days
Yeah.
to...
Isn't that what we're talking
Well,
about?
yeah, but whether the science board, we cannot excuse the science board from statutory deadline imposed on them. That's my recollection.
Well, then,
isn't that
well,
the
then how
fact?
could John Laird extend it if it's statutory?
Pardon?
How could John Laird extend it?
I do not know.
Well, why would we be writing John Laird to
Let's
say
put it over
that-
till December
that the
and
law-
see, and get the reflection, final reflection
I-
from Peter and Chris.
I think what Dr. Goodwin tells us is that the Independent Science Board is prepared to meet the 120-day deadline, and we should be supportive of that. In our discussion yesterday, Hank, you missed it, but we held out the option of at 90 days. If it's apparent that the document is so difficult to get through, that we can request an extension then. But right now, we're guessing as to what we're going to receive on December 13th, and I support Patrick's recommendation. Let's wait and see before we offer
And
a
if we were to
recommendation.
write a letter, what you're saying is you write it and say, we're going to keep the deadlines. The report, I think this is what the Science Board's going to say, Science Board report may be preliminary in nature.
But
we don't know yet.
Are there going to be a lot of surprises in the document? I mean, we've, had a seat at the table, so to speak, for a while.
Yesterday, we received two views. You can't tell what's going on if people don't say in advance what they're trying to do. And then the alternative view, the devil's in the details. And so we had both arguments to that. I have no idea.
Yeah.
It's-
I mean, we submit documents to the FDA to get a product approval. We
Right.
just submitted one October the 13th. 785,000 pages. The
785,000.
height of a 12-and-a-half-story building. Okay. And they've got 6 months to approve that. So we should be able to do this, and I know we're a hell of a lot better than the FDA.
Let's schedule it for consideration at the next meeting.
All right.
Okay? Great. Thank you.
Any other?
We have no other business.
Could I move adjournment?
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.